History is a lie agreed upon, but the truth is hidden in the blood of the men who were too rich to live. Imagine an organization so powerful they owned the debts of every king in Europe. So secretive they answered only to God, and so advanced they invented the banking system you use today, 700 years before the first computer. In the early dawn of Friday, October 13th, 1307, the French king struck a blow to erase them from existence. But as the smoke of the burning knights rose over Paris, a secret fleet slipped away into the fog, carrying a treasure that would eventually discover a new world. This is not just a legend. This is the documented, terrifying, and astonishing true story of the Knights Templar. In the year 1119, the dust of the First Crusade had settled over the ruins of Jerusalem, but the roads were far from safe. 9 men, led by the Knight Hugues de Payens, stood before King Baldwin II. They were the poor fellow soldiers of Christ, men who claimed to possess nothing but their swords and their faith. The king granted them a wing of the royal palace, the site of the ancient Temple of Solomon. For 9 years, these men did not recruit a single new member. They did not fight. They did not protect pilgrims. Instead, they dug. Deep beneath the stone foundations of the Al-Aqsa Mosque, they searched for something. Historians today still find the tunnels they carved into the bedrock. What they found remains the greatest mystery of the Middle Ages. Some say they found the Ark of the Covenant. Others believe they found ancient scrolls of geometry and finance that had been hidden since the time of the pharaohs. Whatever it was, it transformed 9 poor knights into the most influential power brokers in human history. By 1129, the Council of Troy officially recognized the order. Saint Bernard of Clairvaux, the most powerful monk in Christendom, wrote their Latin rule. They were granted a status that made them the untouchables. They were exempt from all taxes. They could cross any border without permission, and they answered to no king, only the Pope himself. The Templars realized that power wasn't just in the sword, it was in the ledger. They invented the letter of credit. A merchant in London could give the Templars 1,000 gold coins, receive a coded parchment, and walk into a Templar fortress in Jerusalem months later to withdraw his money. They had created the world's first multinational corporation. With this wealth, they built. They didn't just build churches, they built fortresses that defied the physics of the time. They owned 9,000 commanderies across Europe and the Middle East. They became the personal bankers to the kings of England and France. If a king wanted to go to war, he had to ask the Templars for a loan. But the battlefield was where their legend was forged in blood. They were the special forces of the Crusades. A Templar was forbidden by his oath to retreat unless the odds were 3-1 against him. At the Battle of Montgisard, 500 Templars charged into Saladin's army of 30,000, turning the tide of history in a single afternoon of carnage. As the 13th century waned, the Holy Land was lost. The fall of Acre in 1291 saw the Templars fighting to the last man as the city burned around them. They retreated to the island of Cyprus, but they brought their wealth back to Europe. This was their fatal mistake. In France, King Philip IV, known as the Fair, was a man of cold ambition and even colder debts. He owed the Templars a fortune he could never repay. He began to whisper to the Pope about dark rituals and secret heresies happening inside the Templar temples. On the morning of Friday, October 13th, 1307, the king's men struck. Thousands of Templars were arrested in their beds across France. They were thrown into the darkness of the dungeons and subjected to the most horrific tortures the Inquisition could devise. The Grand Master, Jacques de Molay, was kept in a cell for 7 years. Under the rack and the flame, some knights confessed to worshipping a goat-headed idol called Baphomet. Modern historians believe these confessions were forced, but at the time they were the death warrant of the order. However, the king's plan had a massive flaw. When his men broke into the central treasury in Paris, the vaults were empty. The legendary Templar treasure, tons of gold, silver, and the secret archives had vanished just hours before the raid. Eyewitnesses at the port of La Rochelle reported a fleet of 18 Templar ships sailing out into the Atlantic under the cover of night. They flew no flags. They carried the secret heart of the order. Where they went is the greatest cold case in history. In 1314, Jacques de Molay was brought to a small island in the Seine River to be burned at the stake. As the flames licked his feet, he didn't scream. He shouted a curse. He summoned King Philip and Pope Clement to meet him before God's judgment within a year. Within months, both the king and the pope were dead. But the Templars didn't die. They evolved. In Scotland, a mysterious force of unknown knights appeared at the Battle of Bannockburn to help Robert the Bruce defeat the English. Legend says these were the escaped Templars. In Portugal, they simply changed their name to the Order of Christ. They became the navigators who taught the world how to sail the deep oceans. Prince Henry the Navigator, the man who started the Age of Discovery, was the Grand Master of this order. In the Rosslyn Chapel in Scotland, built 100 years before Columbus discovered America, there are carvings of maize, corn, and aloe vera, plants that only existed in the New World at the time. Did the Templars reach America in the 1300s? The Templar legacy is hidden in plain sight. From the architecture of Washington, D.C., to the symbols on the U.S. dollar bill, the influence of the secret societies that grew from the Templars' ashes, like the Freemasons, is undeniable. The Templars were the first to realize that power is run by those who control the flow of money and information. They created the first global network. They were the architects of the modern age, built on a foundation of blood and gold. For centuries, treasure hunters have searched for the Oak Island Money Pit in Nova Scotia, believing the Templar gold is buried there in a trap-filled shaft. Millions of dollars have been spent and lives have been lost searching for what the Knights took from Paris. But the real treasure wasn't gold. It was the knowledge of how to build a world. They were the first to use zero in their calculations, a concept they brought back from the East. They were the first to use double-entry bookkeeping. As we look at the skyscrapers of New York and the banks of London, we see the shadows of the Templar commanderies. Their letter of credit became the credit card in your wallet. Their secret meetings became the boardrooms of Wall Street. The story of the Templars is a warning. It shows that no matter how much power you have, the envy of a king can destroy you. But it also shows that an idea once planted can never be fully uprooted. Today, the mystery remains. We find their symbols in the most unexpected places. We find their influence in our laws and our secrets. The Iron Ledger never closed. It just changed hands.